We need to move this to the next episode or wrap it up.
It already is moved to the next episode. See, we can fix it in post.
Hi! You just punched the
John
TV.
punched his TV.
Congratulations!
Ah,
You have
There's
a dead
that hostility
pixel.
we were waiting
It's
for.
There it
it's
is.
paid for. It's fine. All right. Well, since we are actually officially in.
Oh, hey,
in
you
part
need
two,
a new
what?
TV. You can get a free one from Samsung when you buy another one.
Yeah, that TV's crap. That TV is garbage. That's like a $300 TV. That's
They're
not even
doing
worth
what?
$300.
I got a message from Samsung the other day. It's like, hey, chat with an expert, and we'll give you a free TV when you buy another one.
Yeah, it's like buying. It's either the C3 or the C4. It's either the C3, C4, or G3 or G4. One of those, and they'll give you like another really cheap 75-inch TV. I'm like, no, I'm okay, thank you.
Apparently they didn't sell well, I guess.
They did
No.
not. They're garbage. Speaking of things that potentially could be garbage, I want to ask this question.
No.
And I'm shut up.
Somebody had to do it.
I know. I'm going to open this up to the floor, completely to the floor. I want you guys to discuss or at least have a proposition of why open source or why closed source, but I want it in this manner of criteria. The criteria here is we have, Stephen, because I know you directly experienced this, so I want your pain and anguish. Net new client.
Huh.
They have absolute crap infrastructure that has not been updated in over 10 years.
Uh-huh.
They use outdated QuickBooks. They use outdated Office, and all their workstations need to be refreshed. But they are looking at alternatives to current contemporary platforms that most businesses are on. Why should they look at open source projects, and why shouldn't they? What are the pros and cons of both, and what will be the repercussions of both? And when you're doing these considerations, I need you to provide reasoning behind why yes and why not. Open discussion.
And there's those little spinny balls over everyone's head right now.
So,
Ladies
for
and
the,
gentlemen, in the quarter you have closed source. In the other quarter you have open source. Fight.
for the financial side of things, I can't speak to that. I don't know. I don't know what you would do as far as like
A
QuickBooks goes.
line of business
but from
application, a
the-
custom line of business application that they've used for years.
From the document sharing and like document sharing, collaborating on documents, and what am I trying to say here? Editing of said documents. If they have the option of setting up in-house infrastructure for it, the Nextcloud would be a good option. So instead of going with like Office 365 or Google Workspace, you have your own Nextcloud installation. I've set up my own Nextcloud, which is why I can kind of speak to this.
I love Nextcloud.
It is so good. We should move to Nextcloud because I freaking hate Office and Teams. It's just
You can
awful.
hate it all you want. There's a reason why we're using it right now.
No, but outside of email, Nextcloud is like so much better. And then from the if you're not already built up in a cloud of some kind, and you have the option of not going that route, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to at least try. Now, granted, like I am a hobbyist and I can do whatever I want with my own hardware. Like there's no monetary gain or risk here, so I can speak out of my butt and just that's fine. But from a business standpoint, at least to me, it would make a little bit more sense to go the Nextcloud route. If you have the option of doing it and you have somebody that can support it, just to get it up and running and configured and everything. Because once it's going, most people won't notice the difference. Like you still have all of your typical, you upload your files to it. You've got all of your different clients, so you can have it installed on your phone. You can have it on your laptop. You can have it on your desktop. You can sync files to the cloud and then back down. So from the end user standpoint, the only person that really needs to know how it works is whoever is setting it up. And then beyond that, training the users is just dead simple because it's the same interface that they would typically be used to.
I know that this seems illogical because like the way that you're describing it is not unrealistic. Is not really unrealistic, but you're giving way too much credit to end users. You're
to an
giving
extent.
way too much credit
To an extent.
because the things that I'm trying to keep it to your criteria, John.
If you need to expand
Um,
upon it, you can expand upon it.
But yeah, so I think one of the key things you said, Matthew, was if you have somebody that can manage it, that can maintain what's being set up, because some of the things I've seen, even with just traditional infrastructures and stuff, one of the things that I saw last year, relatively recent, is someone who was very obviously was obviously a novice, and set up a relatively standard but pseudo complex Windows server environment, apparently strictly off of YouTube videos, because there was a lot of fancy dancy stuff like group policies for specific things, the things that you would that I've learned are pretty standard in like an internal IT environment for an organization where you would try to automate things and do stuff like that. They just were done wrong and just not organized well, like you would like. It's that little extra. It's like experience versus I'm just doing this on the fly. And then there was the whole, we're going to take a bare metal server and we're just going to install all the Microsoft server roles on it like you're not supposed to, and then hope for the best. So that being said, to your point of introducing something that, because I'm assuming that in this example, like when you're talking about an aged infrastructure, we're talking about they have an aged Microsoft Windows-based infrastructure.
Windows Server, Windows PCs, things
if
of
they're
that
coming
nature.
from that, going to fill in the blank, Nextcloud, something else, you are gonna have to do a lot of user training, because while yes, it may work the same, and it may even look very, again, like LibreOffice, like we talked about, it does look very similar. Somehow, some way, at least in my experience,
Slightly different icons
looks,
just throw people
yes,
off.
looks
Yeah. Oh, I know.
so important to people, and I don't understand it because I'm not that way entirely. But but I mean, that is the appearance of things and the one-to-one nature of things are just very important to people. So there will be a significant degree of user training, even on some of the most simple things. But you just have, I think that it would be very important if you were going to do this in practice, to absolutely do, not just know what you think is enough to manage, like really do your due diligence and put some real thought and planning into the implementation, so that it's easier for you to manage, so it's intuitive for you to manage. But this being a business, hypothetically, for somebody to come behind, for you to have some, hire somebody under you to help, or you move on to something else and someone comes behind you, so that they're not totally caught off guard and in the dark on what in the world is this.
And that's why I would jump to Nextcloud and not some other amalgamation of different services, right? Because like you could spin up a Docker, you could put Docker on a server and then just start spinning up all sorts of containers to fill in the gaps for all the different things that you need. Nextcloud is a mostly all-in-one solution from the Office side of things. Again, leaving out the financial aspects of it and like how you would manage all that stuff. And it's the user friendliness of it is why I would recommend that. And if you don't want to host it yourself, you can pay somebody else to host it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But the data is going to be much easier to migrate on-prem and off-prem, at least in my mind, versus trying to move all of your Microsoft stuff back and forth and all around.
And to that point, though, and on the flip side of that,
John can speak more to that.
I could definitely say moving. It all depends on what information you have in Microsoft. If you're talking things like in SharePoint, OneDrive, any of your main collaborations besides like Microsoft Teams. Teams is its own complete monster. But on those fronts, like Azure Files and all that, no, that stuff is easy to migrate anywhere else. There's multiple tools you can either use, or Microsoft provides tools that you can download all your information. If you want to say take your SharePoint information and go to Google Workspace, or if you want to go to an AWS platform, or if you want to self-host it back yourself, it's not very hard to actually retrieve all that information and then go back to self-hosting it again.
But on the flip side of that, though, I think that for the vast majority of, let's just the organization in this case study, no, the financial side of it, oh, they'd be on board, 100% on board, because you're talking.
I mean, like from the management
Cheap
of
to
financial
free.
documents, not.
Oh, okay.
Not
I thought we were
the-
talking
not
about like the actual
side
cost
things.
of.
No,
Okay.
cost side of things. That's the easiest.
Oh
sell.
yeah, that's
Well,
the easiest sell in the
Actually,
world.
here's the thing. I will actually counter that argument here because I will tell you this right now. Yes, the financial immediate cost may be cheaper, but what is your long-term cost of investment on it? How much actual labor and man-hours will it take for you to adopt an entire workflow around those projects?
That's called job security. We don't talk about that with the client. We don't mention
When
that
you're
part.
looking into these levels of operations, you cannot look, especially on the financial side, just at what is the X dollar amount of the software cost. Because there are so many other factors limited into that. Like in this current scenario, you have an aged server. Okay, well, let's look at that. If we're looking into replacing that server, all right, so now you have that opportunity to say, okay, you're running Windows Server right now. What on Windows Server are you actually using? And what can we deprecate off or migrate to a different service, either open source or closed source, that you can then start looking at options? Because then if you're only using it for things like AD, DNS services, basic like file sharing, things of that nature, you don't technically need Windows Server. I mean, yes, you having Active Directory is super nice, but is it completely necessary? No, because you still have LDAP you can go and lean back into and authenticate everything back that direction. Because most organizations these days on the small business side, do you actually need a domain? No. A lot of them, the only thing that you need is a centralized authentication server that is allowing your accounts to have that first handshake to let them into those resources that then can be monitored by other third-party services, whether that be open source or closed source operations. So in this level scenario, what I'm kind of looking into is, if I'm on this X platform right now, why would I want to stay in this same ecosystem, or why should I change my ecosystem, like Windows Server versus Red Hat, or Linux server like Ubuntu Server, Debian, things of that nature? Why would I go to those alternatives? What is the benefits or the deficits on each side of that end?
So let me jump in on the server side of things. And I
Could
think
run Nextcloud on a Windows server,
Oh, yeah, you can run Nextcloud on a NAS.
so you can still have all that.
I
you
don't
just
know why
have to
y'all
pay
keep
the
talking
licensing
about
for-
servers. You just go to Best Buy and buy you a gaming computer.
I
And
mean-
that's all the power you need.
I mean, technically, a server is just a PC that serves information to another PC.
so. If you look at, say, a typical rack-mounted server, I think the main reason why you have servers, server farms, etc., being running predominantly running like a Linux distro, like Ubuntu, Red Hat, something like that. I think a significant part of the reason is that everyone, or at least the majority of the people that are touching servers directly, have the necessary knowledge and aptitude to
administrate them.
administrate them. And if you are an administrator, the greater the flexibility a platform gives you, the more efficient you can make your own workflows. And it doesn't matter really what it looks like, because let's be honest, most people that are dealing with sysadmin don't care what things look like.
That's true.
So
we want
I
it
would
to
agree with
work.
that.
We just want it to work.
exactly, and you don't have to. And the less you have to deal with Microsoft's weird licensing, Microsoft's weird patching, and just randomly changing stuff and it breaking and then taking you down, and then you have to go find out what the problem is, yada yada yada.
We need to make a shirt. I survived Windows 10 2020.
Oh my god,
Be a great shirt.
that would be a phenomenal shirt.
So that's why I think you have why open source is so predominant in that world, because that world is predominant, is mostly populated by people like us. And it is by us, I mean the people, those of us hosting the show, and then many of you listening if you're on the IT side of things. those are our people. That's our thing. Awesome. We can make it work. A significant part of why you don't have this taking off as much in the user space,
Because users are stupid.
it's because
Incompetent, I think, is the word that you're looking for.
I don't remember if I said it on recording or not, but I'm ready to leave the normies behind, and that's a conversation that we need to get to at some point.
the end user, their job isn't IT.
And it doesn't have to be.
And because their job isn't IT, they have other priorities.
And that's fair.
But I
And-
think we can. I think this is. We can get into this a little bit. That's yes, but where I would counter that argument is, we live in a world now.
We live in a
that-
society.
We live in a society. I mean, one of the things that I grapple with in my own mind, like that it baffles me, is with, in dealing with especially small to medium sized businesses. We live in a world where, before in the 20th century, sure, you could make the argument that a business is its people, a business is its product that it makes, a business is its core values and blah, 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 all that. No, in the 21st century, a business is its technology. I don't care what business you're in. Your business, what it is the technology that it has and that it's running on. Because if that technology fails, you no longer have a business. You cannot do business in the 21st century without technology. If some component of your technology in your business stops working, then you can't sell your product. You can't communicate with your vendors. You can't schedule whatever. You can't do business. And so normies, as you call them, Matthew, but just users that we deal with, and employees out of business, and business owners, business managers, everyone has to, because I believe that there's a large percentage of people that haven't done this yet, and they just are going to have to. People have to accept that that technology is a part of life. Learning and knowing general basic how computers work.
Yes.
How, the real surface level. I'm not talking about the data center level stuff that you were referring to, Nathan. I'm talking about, actually understanding how your files are stored on a server, whether you are storing your cloud, like what the cloud is versus a physical server on-prem, actually understanding the general basis, the brochure of like how all that flows, how I use the term like where your files live a lot with users, because that's the simplest that I can, that I can actually make it.
But it's really simple, Steven. You click on the file button, you click on the drive letter that you typically put files into, and you put your file in there, and you're done.
It just does the files and the things.
That's where my files go.
Yeah.
I put the files in the files.
But I mean, these are things that we've, I think, all encountered, that there's very simple functional aspects of a computer.
Yeah.
That a lot of people like just do, and they stand behind the excuse, I'm not real good with technology.
So this is
I'm
where,
not real good at computers. That is
Yeah.
I believe that's an unacceptable statement.
this is
in the
my
world we live in.
definition of a normie, right? Of the people that they want things to just work, which is a fine
That's completely
expectation.
fair.
It's a fair expectation in and of itself. But the problem is that they don't want to put in any effort
Any effort.
whatsoever to understand how it works and then understand how to make it work, right? Of the people that don't want to learn their tools, because that's what computers are at the end of the day. I
Yes.
don't care if you're not a computer person, in quotation marks, right? It is the tool that you have been given to do your job. If you are not going to learn how to use your tool, you have no business being here. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with the whole I'm ready to leave the normies behind. Because if you're not willing to learn your tools, to use the tools to do your job, what
Because
are
you
you
can't
doing?
you can't even begin to expect, like, again, you take your car to a mechanic shop, and they've got a team of mechanics, and only 2 out of 10 know the difference in the sizes of sockets.
The difference between
And know
the
the
metric
difference
and the
between
imperial system.
exactly. I mean I think that in the world we live in, that's a reasonable comparison to somebody being in an office job who works on a computer day in and day out and having no inkling of the fact that a PDF can be opened in other things besides Adobe Reader.
And that comes from
And
just a
it
basic
doesn't matter what
understanding
the
of file
icon
format.
says. If it says .pdf, it doesn't matter what the icon looks like. It'll open in whatever the thing is.
I know where to start this user
I'm dreading
training
this.
and the complete
I don't like where this is
let's
going.
empower the user.
I don't like it.
Our new goal is we're going to teach the world how to print a PDF.
There's that we thing again. Oh God, that's the litmus test. If we do that, then we can't have it as a litmus test anymore.
That's fine because the entire thing of the litmus test is we have to set the baseline, and once we finally surpass that baseline, we have to find a new baseline. This is all a part of moving the user up the chain of intelligence.
And unfortunately, he's right. That is very much the litmus test.
I'm really sad. I thought you were gonna say we were gonna make OSHA videos.
We're still going to make OSHA videos.
Okay, yeah.
100%. That's
we
happening.
never said we weren't doing that.
No, this is
easy,
this
sir.
is in line on that one. So, kind of to circle back a little bit here, on that front of, yes, things are going to be different, and you're always, no matter what happens when you're making platform changes, doesn't matter if it's even Windows to Windows. Like, again, look at the experience and the kerfuffle of whatever happened from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Oh my goodness, the Windows button's now in the middle instead of the left-hand side.
Which is a dumb idea.
No, that's the second time it's happened. Are you talking Windows 8? Are you kidding me?
True. But, okay, Windows 8 didn't actually have a Windows button.
I know, it took it away entirely. It took away the desktop
Which
entirely.
was also dumb.
it had the desktop. It had charms.
Oh, don't that.
So I'm
was
gonna
charming.
I'm probably gonna get a lot of people upset. I did and
You're doing that a lot
appreciate
today. I like it.
I'm just I'll do it. The Windows 10, the full screen start menu. I appreciated that because if I'm gonna
Windows
go to
10,
all the trouble,
wait.
Windows 10,
Windows
full
10.
screen start menu.
How'd you get a full
8.1?
screen start menu?
It was an option. I don't know if
Oh.
it's been a long time since I've used Windows 10 because I've been using Windows
What
11
was
for a
it,
while. They took
Windows-
it away with Windows 11. So
Was it Windows 8-ish? Like was it?
Yes.
Okay.
8.1 had the full screen start.
Well,
option that
it gave you
they
the
brought back.
option to go back
Yeah.
to a normal desktop.
with Windows
Yes.
with Windows 10, you have the desktop.
Uh-huh.
You have the start menu. You could have the tiles, right?
Mhm.
You could have a small or regular. I don't remember exactly what they called it. It was like a
bottom
regular
quarter of the
size.
screen.
Yeah, like a reasonably proportioned, like what it is kind of now.
Yeah.
Start menu on the bottom left, or you could have a larger one, or you
Oh.
could have it go full screen, so you have all of the tiles there.
Okay.
I started using Windows 10 with a Dell Inspiron 11-inch
Oh,
laptop. It was
Nice.
an
11
Ultrabook,
inch.
11-inch Ultrabook. So it could it was
got
like
good eyes.
the tablet and all
I
that.
love those.
It's great. I love the thing. It's still around somewhere. I need to find it. But anyway, using that in tablet mode was great.
This makes more sense to your. Okay, I
Yeah,
get where
if
you're
I
going
was
with
just
this.
purely this is a desktop, it
if you
wouldn't
had
matter.
if you had a 15-inch laptop, would you
Yeah.
probably still have this opinion?
If the laptop had a touchscreen, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was kind of disappointed that Windows 10 or Windows 11 took it away, but now I have discovered the beauty of PowerToys Run, and it's just
Oh,
irrelevant. You don't need
true.
a start menu.
But
You don't need a taskbar.
I will
You just
say-
need the alt space and type in what you want. and that's
I
it.
will say I will defend this to the day I die. Most laptops should come with a touchscreen.
Yeah.
Until you experience a laptop with a touchscreen, then you move to one that doesn't have it. I love my ThinkPad. It is phenomenal. It's a great little machine. The one thing I hate about it is I went from a laptop that had a touchscreen to now not, and every time I want to do something,
The only difference
the
is the
most
grease
touch
stains are
thing?
meaningless on
yes,
this.
completely meaningless.
What's the most touch thing? What is the most touch integrated thing that you use with it?
So what I actually used it a ton was Microsoft Whiteboard was amazing with it.
Okay.
And then what I'd love to do was to put my little laptop, because it was one of those that you can fold the hinge all the way, make it like a TP style. It was awesome, like a little A-frame. And then
Is this enabling
style.
you working and lounging on the couch?
100%. 100%. But I was able to work in the home lab, having multiple remote sessions open, using the virtual keyboard and all that, but being able to like drag windows around and like copy and pinch to zoom text and things. It was so nice. Like just having pinch to zoom on my PC is
That I can totally.
it's so
I can totally
amazing.
say I can level with you there.
it's so good.
I had a touchscreen on a work laptop for 2 years. I used it maybe 4 times
I have a touchscreen
because
right
I usually
now,
forgot it was there.
and I don't really use it all that often, but it's nice when it's there. Yeah, see that work.
So back to a little bit on some of the discussion.
I can rant about print to PDF if we
A
need
point that
to-
I was trying to get
to
to
buffer time.
was
It's a litmus test. It's like literally if you want to discover how technically competent a user is,
Yeah.
prompt them in some way, shape, or form to print something to PDF.
Do you want me to
and
rant
you'll
about print to
discover-
PDF now, Nathan?
No.
Or do you
No.
wanna, okay.
you
We're
all
gonna
have
save that for another
y'all have
conversation.
ranted enough about print to PDF. I think we're good with print to PDF.
Do you know how to print to PDF?
Yes, I know how to print to
Okay,
PDF. What are you talking
all
about?
right, I'm just-
I know how to do it on both Windows and Mac. Thank you very much.
Oh.
I mean, it's
So-
pretty much, especially if
the
you're
same
doing it
thing.
in a browser, it's pretty much
It's
the
the
same
same thing.
everywhere.
So there is a wide gulf between those that need to know how to use command line and those that don't.
So I'm not, just to
There-
clarify, I'm not asking the normies to learn how to use the terminal. They
So-
don't have to. What I am asking is that they
You're
learn
gonna
how to
scare
use
people with
the
PowerShell
software that
and
they are
terminal.
given to do their jobs.
So
Correct.
and my point with it comes to like the software that's given is that those of us on the tech side need to keep in mind that most people don't need most of the software we play with.
and that's
And
fair.
that if most small operations, if all they're doing is selling a widget or they are running a little shop or something like that, or they have a little online business, what have you, what most of them need is email, some sort of word processing, some sort of spreadsheet, and a web browser to access their financial institutions.
They don't need a database, Ian. They
That's-
need spreadsheets.
That's about all. That's about
Specifically CSV spreadsheets.
Well,
that's about but what I'm getting at with that is that's basically all they need. And in reality, most people in that category, all they really need is a lower mid or mid-tier laptop.
Yeah.
With Microsoft 365
or Nextcloud.
and no, not Nextcloud. Because on the Microsoft 365, Microsoft has did two things among the recent stacks that were very, very smart. One we alluded to last episode regarding how heavily they use open source in their development environments. That's very important because most young nerds are going to be playing with open source first because it's free and they can get their hands on it. And if that's what you were playing with in high school, then that's what you're going to want to do if you're for your professional career. So that's one point. That makes a lot of sense. The other point is that Microsoft has heavily invested in their knowledge base. They have one of the Microsoft knowledge base is one of the best in existence.
Microsoft Learn is pretty great.
If you can crack the code to navigating it, yes.
And so because
so the code to navigating it is you
Google
Google
it.
what you
Yes.
want,
Yep.
and that takes
And
away
you
the
just
game.
include
Correct.
Microsoft Learn at the end of it, or
Yes.
Microsoft, yeah.
but that's my point though, is that they have provided tons of resources to learn how to use their tools. And
Office 365 doesn't count as open source though.
No,
it's
I'm
not.
not
It's not even close.
saying
It's
it's
the
open
poster
source.
child for closed source.
It is,
It
but
has been since it was.
yeah,
but
yeah.
my
so-
my
so, yeah.
point with this is that the reason this closed source ecosystem exists is because it's all a certain group needs, and they don't need to spend time, because we have to remember that when you're looking at any sort of platform, it's not just the money you have to spend to purchase a license. It's the money you're losing figuring out how it works. And now, yes, to a point, people need to know how to use the tools that are in front of them. But if they're spending all of their time learning tools that are in front of them, they need to go find different tools.
Well,
Unless their job is to figure out the tools that are in front of them.
two pieces here. So one, Well, the main thing is I think that what Matthew and I were talking about as far as raising the bar for expectations on end
Just
users,
setting a bar in general.
yeah, is
We're
it's
gonna raise it.
Yeah,
has
we
nothing
already
to
have the
do.
bar.
It has nothing to do. Like you're kind of. I think you're taking that as again like forcing them into our world a bit, crossing that line behind the curtain. That's not it at all. My expectation for an end user getting good is learning that Microsoft Outlook has a little gear at the top, and it's called settings. And there's things in settings that you can change to make it do different stuff. And the things that you're putting tickets in for to have us do, to say, it's like, hey, it's not doing this thing I want it to do, or it's doing something that I don't like, I don't want it to do anymore. 9 times out of 10, those things are in that little settings menu that you have complete access to. And it has little words beside it that describe what the settings are. And it has nice little drop down boxes that has all the options. That there's only so many
You
options.
hover over it, it tells you what you
and-
do.
And you have full access to this, and it's very intuitive. If you just use your eyeballs and your brain and you think about it for just a moment as you're going through there, they can literally fix a minimum 40% of their own problems, if not 60% of their own problems,
That's just
by
an
simply
Outlook.
putting a little bit of effort into going to a settings menu. And this applies to all of the softwares that you just mentioned that are your standard Teams, Word, Outlook, everything. What we're talking about is there's a very obvious lack in effort and knowledge in just the most basic of managing one of those critical applications
that,
on your own.
That first part's the key, lack of effort. And that is you in general.
And that's what we're talking about. It's we need to move into it needs to be unacceptable for that effort not to be there.
For certain levels of effort.
No.
Yes.
No.
Because again, you can go
The receptionist who uses Outlook every day, I don't care how old she is. She
Now,
should
I
know
want
there's
to-
a menu in Outlook.
I want to
or
add a
there's
little
settings menu.
addendum to this because this is something important. This is not asking users to spend their own time learning stuff. This
No,
would be
do it at work, yeah.
bought and paid for by the company. This is included in training.
and that's actually my point is that if you're wanting a company, if the solution requires tons of time, and here's the other thing also is that
2-page knowledge base document with pictures in it.
would be helpful.
All it would take.
Would be helpful. And I'm also not saying this to defend the user who doesn't want to learn anything. That's not the
There are
point here.
too many of those.
You're setting an expectation that they have to read
That's
and
not
comprehend.
that's not the point here.
My favorite part is that the older generation that complains about the younger generation not reading are some of the worst at not reading.
The worst. No. Okay, not the worst, but yes, some of the worst.
Some of
the worst.
no.
Yes, all
Like
good.
it's not reading is not.
Because
It's
the-
not contained to a single generation.
Because the amount of 35 to 45-year-olds that fall into that same category is
oh
scary.
my gosh, yes.
One of the issues you have with on the open source side of things is there is significant amounts of the documentation that you need to learn how to use it, typically incomplete. I cannot tell how many times, whether it was written, whether it was YouTube, combination of the two, I find a software. It looks kind of cool. I want to figure it out. And I have spent a couple of days and I'm done because there's 2 or 3 pieces that I cannot figure out. And every place I go to look for it, everyone skips those pieces.
You didn't go far enough in the forums. What are you talking about?
And
If you go into the forums and you learn everything you need to know.
yeah, that's a lie. That's a total lie. Complete
If you
lie.
spend enough time in the
Complete
forums,
lie.
you'll eventually learn the one thing that you were wanting to learn.
Exactly, and it'll be posted by a question from 8 years ago by one user, and it will get one reply that was updated 3 months ago.
Or it'll get 50 replies. Only the 47th reply is the useful one, and the rest of them are people berating OP for not knowing the thing they asked about.
That's also fair.
And I would say that you can run that that in and of itself, in my opinion, is one of the significant barriers to quote unquote the normies adopting something that we would say is a better solution, because the price that they have to pay in time to learn that, even if they want to learn it, the price that they have to pay is very steep.
Well,
Now-
that's where my original suggestion of Nextcloud being the solution, as far as just the basic business Office 365 versus an open source thing. Nextcloud, I just pulled up their help site. Like, it's not the greatest, but I'm also only briefly
that's-
It's
looking at it.
roughly formatted the same.
But
as
the
what
the
you'd be
general
familiar
the
with.
general user experience, right? You're not going to have to dig into the documentation, because things are the way that they are because it's standardized. Like, you have the little French fry menu. This is to open up a context menu to then do stuff
Did you
with
say
the thing.
French fry menu?
Yeah, so the three
Yeah.
dots, that's referred to as a French
That's a
fry.
French fry.
Three lines, that's a hamburger.
Correct.
Have you not heard of this before?
How'd you not know this?
I've
Oh,
never heard
Everything
of
is
French fry
food.
before.
Yes.
Everything is food.
Yes.
I've never heard of the French fry
I've-
before.
Correct.
I learned something today.
On a
Hey,
Mac,
look at
you've
you.
got the ketchup, the mustard, and the pickle.
Correct.
Oh God, I hate.
Well, that's not the. It's the relish, sir.
I thought it was
It's-
a stoplight.
Well, if we want to stick with the condiment, sure.
I
Because it
thought-
was.
I mean,
I've known it
can
as the
be.
relish.
But it's, if you want to relate everything back to food, it's food.
It's super easy. It's either food or it somehow goes back to some really obscure like nerd thing from like back in the early '90s.
like
and it's that.
penguins.
But that's the thing. Giving the normies a well
I hate calling them
That's why I
defined
don't.
user interface. That's
derogatory.
fair, right? Like, it shouldn't be convoluted. I agree with that.
And
It shouldn't be obtuse to use.
It not only should not be convoluted, is that, and that's why, like with like Nextcloud and some of LibreOffice, I'm glad to see more modern graphics on user interfaces are starting to be adopted. That we're finally acknowledging that monitors go up beyond 1080. That's been, or 720, frankly. That's been great. You have to. The other thing, though, another thing to keep in mind on the open source side is, where is the incentive to make it good? In the case of a lot of the current closed source softwares, they typically look better and they can function as well or better because there's a financial incentive to make them better. Now, the issue we have with a lot of the major platforms is that the financial incentive isn't really so much anymore making them better. It is to make it them easier to mine data from.
Right. But here's an interesting question. And this was something that I actually was contemplating for a little while, and why people would do this. Why would somebody go into open source as a business?
Because you can make money doing it if you do it in specific ways. So let's say from a IT management side of things, I think you could, to some clients at least, you could potentially have a market to say specialize in Nextcloud and LibreOffice, et cetera, et cetera. And one of your core business models is, hey, we'll do your IT support. We use these platforms. If you want to use these platforms, we're your people. And from a financial standpoint, the incentive is people are paying you to know this. And you can then sell it as this is a superior product to what Microsoft or Google currently have.
But that's not, from a business side, in my view, that's actually bad business, because if you're in it for, your incentive is to make money, why wouldn't you then close source the project, sell that in incremental price increases to maximize profits?
I think he's referring to like what we do, like IT management.
What was that?
Your
Just
take
look.
failed.
Yeah.
Wonder who
the
glued
door is
that up
attacking us.
there.
Are you talking about, John? Are you talking about this from the
Sounds like you're talking about from the developer
from the
side.
Nextcloud
Yeah.
side of things, or
From
from
the next
We're
cloud
talking
side.
about it from a IT management side of things.
Yeah, my question I was posing is from the developer side.
Why would you ever
Why-
develop it as
Yeah,
open
why would you
source?
why would you develop your software to be natively open source as a business? What is their incentive to do that?
That's a whole other topic.
If you don't, one reason is In some cases, it is altruistic in the sense of you don't think you should have sole rights to this. Anyone should be able to use it. Another is a different business model. Now, now it's really hard to argue that Microsoft and Google's closed source software as a data mining application isn't profitable. It's hard to argue that that's not profitable.
I'd say it's very, yeah, definitely profitable.
However, if you're fine with not trying to compete with that particular business format or business
Market share.
go for another market, because there are people out there, they're very vocal online, that will refuse to use a Microsoft or Google product because of the data mining. Okay, cool. And there are people out there that want to be able to see what all you're putting in your code. Now, on the one hand, that does make it sound like you are giving something away for free, but in reality, you're not giving that much away for free, because as we have just been discussing, a lot of people don't want to do a lot of this themselves. A lot of people want you to do a lot of things for them.
Yes.
And yes, while you have thrown out, yes, Nextcloud is open source. Yes, we could, if we wanted to, take the source code, spin it into something completely different, and then call that ours.
Fork it into our own.
We could fork it
That
into our
happens.
own, but in reality, the vast majority of people that use an open source platform will never fork it.
Another reason why you would develop it is to basically get free beta testing. Every time you launch a new version of your product, you have your users essentially beta test it for you. I mean, you can do everything internally that you possibly can, but it's like AAA games that launch today. They don't actually launch as a full completed feature game anymore. They launch as a beta and let the users pay to use it and then beta test it for them.
It's like a hidden beta test
Yeah.
almost.
Speaking of closed source, I hate this so much. I just somehow discovered on my Mac that it picked up my iPad, and now my mouse is now going between my Mac and the iPad.
That's a feature, not
That's
a bug.
I don't like.
That's a legitimate feature
How does it know it's here?
because it's the same account.
You signed in with the same Apple ID?
Yes, I only
That's
have
how
one
that
Apple ID. I
works.
don't like that. They're separate
Why
devices.
do you have Apple products then?
all my Windows stuff? It's separate. Let me have my split ecosystem. It's fine. It's its own thing.
Use a Mac and an iPad.
iPads are some of the better.
best
Nobody's
tablets.
complaining about a built-in standard feature of the two.
I wasn't aware of this feature,
How?
and it freaked me.
I was aware of this. This is like 3 years old.
Steven.
This is called what's the sidecar?
Yes.
This is called sidecar. It's been a thing
He even got it right.
for like
Look
the
at that.
last 3
I don't
Apple
know.
versions.
Steve, I'm the worst Apple
you
user
own
ever.
this stuff. I have a 2012 MacBook Pro that I got for free as a retiree. That's the only Apple thing I own, and I know this.
You got as a
I
retiree
purposely
or
bought
from a
these. And I
retiree?
still don't
Huh?
know that.
As a retiree or from a retiree?
Little column A, little column B.
Okay.
No, it's,
Listen.
it was a retired computer from a previous client.
Listen,
I had permission.
I
as well.
didn't know this was a thing. Okay,
It's fun, isn't it?
Apparently.
it's something. I was over here like, why do I suddenly have a mouse on my iPad?
And
Sounds like an end user needs to actually take some time and like learn something about the tools that they're
No,
using
no, no,
for
no.
a
This is in
task.
regards to a mouse. You don't need a mouse.
Yeah.
We've had this discussion.
You
don't
stop
need a
that
mouse.
right now. We're gonna
That
stop.
is actually true. Does my keyboard now work on this? Like,
Also, this will sell Steven on Nextcloud versus
God, it does. This is so trippy.
Office 365. Nextcloud respects your dark mode settings, sir.
Sold. Done. John, go. I need you to go log into the tenant, delete it right now. We're doing Nextcloud.
It's gone.
Grab
Outta
one of
here.
those spare servers out of the closet. We're spinning it up right now.
We all know
This-
you have one.
Just set it
There
on
is
top.
a spare
Just
server.
set it on top of the rack. Just set it on top of the rack. It's fine.
But I have a server just sat on top of the rack right now. It's technically
Put
not even
this one on
powered
top
on
of
right
that
now.
one.
But
Just
I
buy
have one
another
that's not
rack.
even.
You're
They're
gonna
made to
fill it
stack
up
on
later
top of each
anyway.
other. It's fine.
Listen, okay, going back to the open source, yes, I absolutely love it because I have an entire rack full of just open source based solutions that I run my entire operation out of. It's amazing.
But to be this is a home lab versus
This
a
is
business.
home lab versus business, but a lot that I'm currently
That we
doing.
could fail over like 10 businesses
Correct.
to it.
But a lot of stuff I'm doing in the home lab is directly applicable and can be done in a small, medium, and large business right now.
Are you making your livelihood from it?
Potentially,
Are
actually.
you making right now your
right
livelihood
now?
from it?
No.
Okay,
But are these
the
decisions and
difference.
things that I'm working on right now translating into my concurrent job? Actually, yes.
But again, though, I think back to Nathan's point, you're doing your due diligence because you're in the space. You've chosen this as a career. You're of the mindset of learning these things and doing your due diligence. People we're talking about aren't.
They don't. But and this is something that I've had the issue with a lot of businesses and IT firms I've ever kind of rubbed elbows with throughout the years is the one thing a lot of people are lacking is that true blue test environment or lab environment for them to actually look into solutions and platforms like this and see how it can integrate into your current infrastructure without affecting day-to-day operations. That's the biggest key takeaway whenever you're looking, not even at a closed source or open source project, just any new operational procedure or solution or platform that you want to integrate. It should never be a full send.
No, you just do it live.
You should never do it live. You should always at least have a base level of testing that you do. Especially like, let's have that example of Nextcloud versus 365. You can easily test both of those right now at little to no cost. Like Microsoft will let you trial these products for 30 days for free, full license, full capabilities, and Nextcloud you can run as much as you want as long as you stood it up correctly.
Assuming you have the hardware to do it.
Correct.
Or you want to pay somebody to do it for you.
Correct.
Now that well, go ahead, you finish your thing.
I would say everyone has this capability. There are ways you can do this. My view is if you have the capability and you have the technical bandwidth to do this, why would you not adopt a practice such as this? Because it saves you so much pain ahead of time.
Well, the little detail, at least in this specific example, versus those two things, 365 and Nextcloud. So I know, Matthew, you said that. So it's capable of being, you can self-host the data on your infrastructure, or you can host it in a data center or something like that. But does Nextcloud have a true blue software as a service?
The company themselves do for the enterprise side of things. Like
Okay.
if you're using it for like the small mom and pop shop and stuff like that, I expect you to either self-host it or they have a list of providers that they recommend can do it for you.
And that's the little detail there, at least on the scale we're talking about currently, because I don't think we're talking about their enterprise offering where it's more the base level. In my opinion, while yes, that cloud hosted option, it is cloud hosted, there is a difference between that and software as a service. What Microsoft offers is a true cloud browser based. You can use the entire thing on a Chromebook through a browser. You don't need any infrastructure besides the laptop that you have to use all of it.
And it can be a terrible laptop.
Yes. Whereas for this specific example, there is a cost and learning curve and maintenance and so on consideration for Nextcloud, where you would have to have somebody who has advanced knowledge because you're talking about you can self-host it on your own server. Well, that server has to have a server operating system. It could be Windows, it could be Ubuntu server, whatever. You have to have somebody who knows how to set those up and manage those.
Yeah.
You have to have a backup solution because this is your important work data. That could be anything from Veeam to data that we sell to external hard drive using the backup that's built in, which you should never, ever do. Don't do that. You have to have the network infrastructure to support, communicate, blah, blah. There's all those traditional tiers of infrastructure
Yeah.
for a business that you'd have to have accompanying that, which is cost and maintenance. Versus, again, 365, while it has a higher cost and you have the annoying Microsoft-isms of it, you can buy the service, set it up all in the cloud, and you can have all of it at your fingertips with a laptop, and that's your only infrastructure. Theoretically.
It's a lower initial cost.
And could theoretically be a lower ongoing cost with those considerations.
Depending on how you use it.
So
and what your requirements
that
are.
would be the only I'm not supporting one way or the other. I'm just saying that's a caveat to the scenario.
And we also you always, anytime you're looking at a platform, you always have to keep in mind, especially now, if you're home labbing, it doesn't matter. If it is anything that you plan on if it's something that's helping you make money, something that's helping you feed yourself and your family, that learning curve is part of the cost. And depending on how steep it is, that could be significantly more costly. Because as much as we complain about people that don't pay attention to the tools they use, the reality is far more people know how to use a Microsoft platform than anything else.
I beg to differ, but I can see where you're coming from at least.
And I kind of, I have to say I kind of agree, kind of disagree, but my disagreement's different than Matthew's disagreement. I would say, on the one hand, I do agree with Nathan on that, just because the users that we're referring to most when we're talking about users, I mean, they've been using Microsoft Windows since 1992 or like
yes.
since the OG Windows.
Since
So
MS-DOS.
like Windows UI at its core hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
I mean,
except
yes,
for a
it
couple
has,
of
but no,
years where they thought it was a tablet.
right. Yes, it has, but no, it hasn't.
It had that awkward
So there's that
phase.
familiarity there.
Little teenager phase, yeah.
But at the same time, the amount of people that, I'm not kidding, I'm being 100% serious. There's a client where I have worked on a user's computer, and I discovered that they had FileZilla installed. And I mean, I know what FileZilla is typically used for,
FTP, yeah.
right? And so, when I see it, it immediately concerns me, not from but it concerns me. It's like, okay, this is a layer I need to be very conscious of, because FTP server, particular settings, you screw it up and you screw it up. You don't know who's using it on the other end, for functional purposes and all that. So I'm like, okay, I'm asking questions to gain context, so that I'm aware of, not going to mess something up. And this was at least 2 users. I'm not kidding. They told me that they use FileZilla as File Explorer because they don't like how File Explorer works or how it looks.
Perfectly reasonable.
Well, there's a difference between how it looks versus how it works. Like, if they chose that this is their tool and they learned how to use this tool, I can respect that. I can respect that.
It's File Explorer.
I mean, yeah, I agree.
And I mean, for all intents and purposes, the component of FileZilla that's the File Explorer portion, looks exactly like File Explorer.
You can very easily replicate that same interface.
And I mean, this is the bone stock UI FileZilla, like unadulterated. But that blew my mind. I had to really bury that one down deep, because I wanted to say so many things.
That's somebody that theoretically chose a tool based on what they wanted to do with it. Even if they hadn't done any kind of configuration, if they learned how it worked, I can respect that. It's a terrible decision, but they made a decision, I think.
Yes.
That's something worth praising.
Speaking of making decisions, I think now would be a good time to start wrapping up. Nathan, you close us out.
Sure. As in like...
You got to get off of X and pull up the show notes. And
At the very end, we wrote it out for you, sir.
You wrote this out.
I know I wrote this out.
Scroll to the bottom of the show notes.
We made this easy for you.
All right, so you can find us at X or Twitter at HITM Show. You can find us on Instagram, Hostility in the Morning. You can find us on Facebook, also Hostility in the Morning. You can also find us at a little site called Substack at hostilityinthemorning.substack.com. And hey, Matthew, what's the last one?
Saving the best for last, hostilityinthemorning.com.
Our website
We have a website.
that has all the previous things on it.
I didn't know that.
Not you were there when we built it.
I was
Oh,
asleep.
he actually wasn't.
Oh, that's right, he was.
The rest of you were.
It was amazing.
If you're so inclined, you can also find us, if you prefer this media, you can find us on YouTube. Just search Hostility in the Morning, and by now you should be able to find us.
Have a hostile morning.